Ever get the feeling that Hollywood's biggest disasters are sometimes the most fun to watch? Forget the polished blockbusters and the Oscar speeches. Some movies are just so off the wall, so jaw-droppingly wild, that you can't look away no matter how many rules of filmmaking they break. Are you brave enough to celebrate the weird, the wild, and the wonderfully messy? Stick around, because what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about bad movies. Plan 9 from Outer Space. This is the film that basically redefined the idea of a cult classic. Plan 9 from Outer Space is what happens when ambition runs straight into zero budget and no one bothers to hit the brakes. Directed by Ed Wood, a legend for all the wrong reasons, this film throws together aliens, zombies, flying saucers, and cardboard gravestones, all in the first 15 minutes. The plot? Well, it's something about extraterrestrials trying to save Earth from itself by raising the dead. Does it make sense? Absolutely not, but that's the beauty of it. Bela Lugosi, the aging star of Dracula, appears in a few minutes of footage that Wood shot before Lugosi's death. The rest of his role is played by a much taller man who just covers his face with a cape. The sets wobble. The special effects look like they were made in a 5th grade science class, and every line delivery sounds like it was recorded on a dare. The film was a disaster with critics and vanished without a trace when it came out. But decades later, it was rediscovered and crowned the worst movie ever made, a title fans now use with pride. Today, Plan 9 is more than just a mess. It's an unintentional masterpiece of pure imagination. Somehow, its flaws are exactly what make it so unforgettable. In the world of B-movies, that's as close as you get to immortality. Robot Monster. If you've never heard of Robot Monster, congratulations. You're about to experience one of Hollywood's strangest creations. Picture this, a space monster terrorizing the last survivors of Earth, except the alien is just a guy in a gorilla suit wearing an old diving helmet. No, really, that's the whole costume, and it's every bit as wild as it sounds. Robot Monster was shot in only 4 days on a tiny budget, which shows in every frame. The plot is about Roman, an alien who wipes out most of humanity with his calcinator death ray. He delivers his evil monologues from a cave, struggles to hold on to his bubble-making machine, and falls for the last human woman in a subplot that makes zero sense. The filmmakers tried to distract from the chaos by adding dream sequences, random dinosaur stock footage, and endless shots of people climbing hills. Viewers in the 1950s had no idea what they were watching, and most critics agreed this was one of the worst movies ever made. But something magical happened over the years. People started loving Robot Monster for all its wrong turns. Today, it's a midnight movie classic, celebrated for being so unapologetically bonkers that you can't help but have fun. Sometimes, the worst costume in Hollywood history is all you need to create a legend. Manos, The Hands of Fate. Manos, The Hands of Fate isn't just a movie. It's an endurance test, an inside joke, and a rite of passage for bad movie lovers everywhere. Created on a bet by a fertilizer salesman from Texas, Manos follows a family who stumbles into the world's creepiest roadside lodge, run by a cult leader called the Master and his bizarre henchman, Torgo. The plot crawls along at a snail's pace. The sound is terrible, the editing is worse, and every actor looks like they just realized the camera was rolling. Torgo, with his twitching legs and strange delivery, became an accidental cult favorite, even though his dialogue makes no sense and his scenes go on forever. There are entire sections where nothing happens except people looking confused and wandering in circles. When it premiered in El Paso, audiences laughed and jeered the whole way through. The film disappeared for decades until it was revived by TV's Mystery Science Theater 3000, where it became a punchline for an entire generation. But here's the twist. In its sheer awkwardness, Manos manages to be weirdly charming. It's a disaster, but it's our disaster. No movie collection of glorious messes is complete without it. If you ever want to see how the impossible can somehow become iconic, Manos, The Hands of Fate is your proof. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. The title alone should warn you, this is not your typical monster movie. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is both a parody and a disaster, gleefully mixing corny music, fake news reports, and the world's most unthreatening villains, rubber tomatoes. When these killer fruits roll into town, nothing is safe, not even the soundtrack. The movie's plot is a loose thread of government agents, scientists, and everyday folks scrambling to stop a tomato invasion. The special effects are nothing more than people being pelted with actual tomatoes, and the action scenes are pure chaos. At one point, a helicopter actually crashes for real on camera, and they kept the footage because they couldn't afford another take. The script is loaded with groan-worthy jokes, puns, and musical numbers that make you question what you're even watching. Critics hated it. Audiences were baffled. But over time, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes became a cult sensation, inspiring sequels, cartoons, and endless inside jokes. The film is proud of its cheapness and never tries to hide the mess. Instead, it leans in, inviting viewers to laugh with it, not at it. In a strange way, this low-budget chaos paved the way for a whole new kind of comedy. Sometimes, the biggest disasters make for the best entertainment. The Giant Claw. Imagine you're sitting in a dark theater in the 1950s. The hero warns the audience that the world is under attack by a terrifying creature from outer space. Then, the monster appears, and it's a giant bird puppet that looks like it was built in someone's garage, complete with googly eyes and wild, floppy hair. This, my friends, is the Giant Claw, a disaster that somehow became a cult legend. The film is about a supersonic monster bird attacking cities and eating airplanes. The military throws everything they have at it, but nothing works, mainly because the monster looks so absurd that it's impossible to take the movie seriously. The actors play it straight, delivering dramatic lines while trying not to laugh. The special effects are so outlandish that even the cast was embarrassed. The creature became an instant punchline, and critics had a field day ripping the movie apart. Yet decades later, the Giant Claw is beloved for exactly the reasons it failed. Fans host watch parties, quote the best bad lines, and share memes about the bird's goofy appearance. The movie never stood a chance as a serious monster flick, but it found immortality by being gloriously weird. Sometimes a mess isn't just lovable, it's unforgettable. If you want to see Hollywood at its most bizarre, look no further than The Giant Claw. The Creeping Terror. If you ever wondered what would happen if a movie monster was literally just a giant, lumpy carpet, look no further than The Creeping Terror. This film is infamous for its creature. Imagine a slow-moving pile of rags that oozes across the landscape, devouring unsuspecting townsfolk who seem almost too willing to dive into its folds. The monster is so slow and awkward, you'd have to trip over yourself not to escape. Yet, somehow, people still get caught, over and over. The plot, if you can call it that, centers on an alien creature unleashed on a small town. Dialogue is almost non-existent because the film's audio was lost during production. Instead, a narrator tells us what's happening, as if he's reading a bedtime story that keeps getting weirder. Scenes drag on forever, with victims screaming in terror as the creature takes several minutes just to cross the screen. The Creeping Terror was universally panned, but it didn't disappear. Over the years, it gained cult status thanks to late-night TV hosts and bad movie marathons. The sheer laziness of the monster's design, the endless narration, and the complete lack of logic make this movie unforgettable in all the wrong and somehow right ways. It's the cinematic equivalent of a train wreck. You just can't look away. If you want to see the art of low-budget disaster taken to its limits, The Creeping Terror will give you all the thrills and laughs you never asked for. The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Some B-movies are so outrageous, you can't help but admire the nerve it took to make them. The Brain That Wouldn't Die is one of those glorious messes, a film where a mad scientist keeps his fiancée's severed head alive in a pan while he searches for a new body to attach it to. Yes, you read that right. A talking, angry head trapped in a lab, surrounded by bubbling beakers and shrieking for revenge. The story is pure pulp. Dr. Bill Courtner, obsessed with proving his genius, drives off a cliff with his fiancée. Her body is ruined, but her head survives, so he rushes it to his secret lab and rigs up a system to keep it talking. While Bill stalks nightclubs and hospitals in search of the perfect body, the head grows bitter, plotting against him. In the meantime, a mutated monster lurks behind a locked door, waiting for its chance to break free. Released in the early 1960s, the film was blasted by critics for its gory effects and wild plot, but fans embraced its craziness. This was a movie that dared to be ridiculous. The Brain That Wouldn't Die is now celebrated as the ultimate mad scientist movie, packed with camp, overacting, and more plot holes than Swiss cheese. It's the kind of mess you remember forever, and the reason B-movies have a special place in every movie lover's heart. Yuckah. There are bad movies, and then there's Yuckah, a prehistoric epic so mind-bendingly strange that it's impossible not to enjoy the ride. Picture this, a 7-foot caveman played by Richard Kiel, better known as Jaws from the Bond, movies roams the California desert, where he meets a young woman, kidnaps her, and sings while strumming a guitar. Yes, the caveman serenades his victims, and that's just the beginning. The plot involves a teenage couple, Roxy, and Tom, who stumble upon Yuckah while driving in the desert. Yuckah becomes obsessed with Roxy, leading to a series of awkward encounters in his cave, which looks suspiciously like someone's unfinished basement. Her father, an archaeologist, gets mixed up in the madness, resulting in endless scenes of grunting, rock throwing, and questionable haircuts. Yuckah is famous for its wooden acting, bizarre dialogue, and scenes that drag on so long you forget what the movie is about. It's no surprise it was featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, where it earned its reputation as one of the best worst films of all time. Despite, or maybe because of, its endless flaws, Yuckah has fans who wouldn't trade its strangeness for anything. Sometimes, the messiest movies are the ones we remember most. Yuckah proves that even cavemen can leave a mark on Hollywood history. The Beast of Yucca Flats. If you ever wondered what it would look like if someone filmed a horror movie with zero script and just let the camera roll, The Beast of Yucca Flats is your answer. This film is the definition of chaotic filmmaking. A story about a defecting scientist turned radioactive monster shot in the barren Nevada desert with almost no dialogue and a constant, ominous narrator filling in the blanks. The Beast is played by Tor Johnson, a former wrestler whose imposing size is never quite matched by his monster makeup. Instead, he mostly wanders the desert, chasing after random victims, while the narrator intones about the dangers of science, the atomic age, and man's inhumanity. There's barely any plot. The editing is so choppy that you can tell the filmmakers spliced together whatever footage they could get, no matter if it made sense. The sound is mostly wind noise. The suspense is non-existent. Yet, there's something hauntingly weird about this movie. It's so stripped down, so hopelessly confused, that you can't help but be fascinated. The Beast of Yucca Flats has become a cult favorite among bad movie buffs, earning its place in midnight marathons and so bad it's good collections. If you want to see what happens when ambition outruns talent and budget, look no further. This beast is unforgettable. Mesa of Lost Women. Get ready for a fever dream on celluloid. Mesa of Lost Women is a B-movie that feels like a hallucination you can't wake up from. The story follows a mad scientist experimenting in the desert, creating a race of giant mutant women and killer spiders. The dialogue is so stilted, the set so cheap, and the plot so nonsensical that you start to question if the filmmakers were actually in on the joke. The film is famous for its endless, jangly guitar soundtrack that never seems to stop. Scenes drag on with long monologues about the power of women and mad science, all while the camera lingers on awkward dance numbers and rubber spiders. The giant women are just regular actresses standing on boxes, and the laboratory looks like it was built out of leftover props from a high school play. Critics didn't even know what to say. Audiences were baffled, some walking out, others staying just to see how weird things could get. But over the years, Mesa of Lost Women has found a loving audience who adore its unintentional comedy and hypnotic oddness. It's the kind of movie that leaves you dazed, confused, and oddly satisfied. If you ever wanted to lose yourself in pure cinematic chaos, this one's your ticket. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Some movies are so spectacularly misguided you start to wonder if the entire project was a dare. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is exactly that, a North Pole fever dream where Santa is kidnapped by Martians who want him to bring Christmas to their own planet. You read that right. This is a movie where little green aliens hijack Santa, put him in a spaceship, and demand he build toys for Martian kids. From the very first frame, it's clear this film is on another planet. The Martian costumes look like leftovers from a school play. Santa takes it all in stride, cracking corny jokes and doling out advice to Martian parents. There are robot sidekicks, freeze rays, and a Martian villain named Voldar, who scowls like a cartoon. The Earth kids, kidnapped along with Santa, spend most of the movie looking bored or confused, probably just like the audience. The film bombed on release and was dismissed as a children's movie gone off the rails, but its sheer oddness has kept it alive, popping up on late-night TV and becoming a fixture in holiday bad movie marathons. Fans love it for its accidental comedy and its totally shameless commitment to a ridiculous premise. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is proof that even the most bizarre disasters can become a beloved tradition, one awkward ho-ho-ho at a time. Troll 2. If there's a gold standard for so bad it's good, Troll 2 wears the crown. Forget about trolls, there aren't any in this movie. Instead, you get goblins, a vegetarian cult, and a family vacation that turns into a wild mess of green goo and legendary bad acting. The story centers on a young boy, Joshua, who tries to save his family from being turned into plants and eaten by goblins. His only guide, the ghost of his grandpa, who appears in mirrors with cryptic warnings. Nothing in Troll 2 makes sense. The actors were mostly locals with no film experience, and the director spoke almost no English, so the dialogue is packed with strange lines that instantly became internet memes. The costumes are dollar store masks, the effects are pure chaos, and every scene feels like it was shot in one take, no questions asked. There's a reason the movie's most famous line, "They're eating her, and then they're going to eat me. Oh my God," is quoted at midnight screenings everywhere. Troll 2 was a box office flop, and critics couldn't believe it was even released. But years later, it exploded into cult fame. Fans now celebrate its wild creativity, host sold-out screenings, and even made a documentary about how bad it is. Troll 2 proves there's a special magic in pure cinematic disaster, and that sometimes the messiest movies create the most passionate communities. Deathbed, the bed that eats. Some B-movie plots just leave you speechless. And Deathbed, the bed that eats, is a prime example. It's exactly what the title promises. A cursed bed that dissolves, digests, and devours anyone who dares to rest upon it. No vampires, no monsters, just a haunted piece of furniture with a hunger for flesh and a taste for the absurd. The story floats between the present day and ghostly flashbacks, explaining that the bed was possessed by a demonic spirit. Anyone unlucky enough to lie down is swallowed by yellow foam and bubbling acid, all shown with effects that would make a high school science project look like a blockbuster. There's even a trapped ghostly narrator, an artist whose spirit lives behind a painting, doomed to watch the bed's crimes for all eternity. Deathbed was barely released, fading into obscurity until it was rediscovered decades later by bad movie hunters. Today, it's a must-see for lovers of the bizarre, celebrated for its weird commitment to the bit. There's a strange poetry in a story this outlandish, a reminder that Hollywood's wildest messes often have more heart and imagination than the slickest blockbusters. If you want to see a bed, do what no bed should ever do, this is the one for you. Outro. Who says you need a big budget, big stars, or even basic logic to make a movie unforgettable? These B-movie disasters may be a mess, but they're the beating heart of cult cinema, the proof that sometimes chaos is where the real fun lives. So next time you stumble across a bad film, remember, you might just be watching the next cult legend. Which of these glorious wrecks have you survived? Drop your favorites in the comments, subscribe for more wild stories, and keep the popcorn handy. The mess is only getting started.